Yeah.
Hello, this is Talking Devils. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Outgoing Manchester United head of academy, Nick Cox. I'm very grateful to taking time to have a few minutes and talk about your time at United with me, Nick. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. The pleasure's all mine. I'm delighted that you've given me the opportunity to spend some time with you and talk about my experiences. But I'm good. I don't think people realise quite how demanding these types of roles are. So
Yeah.
a little bit of time to recover and spend some time with my family and reflect on the experiences I've had. And obviously, I've got an exciting opportunity that lies ahead. So starting to get prepared for that in my mind for the next chapter.
My first question actually is exactly the same question, but it is like, how are you doing now? Because I mean, this move was announced in the summer. It's a long time. It's a big change for you. You've been in such a demanding role for such a period of time. We've seen the pressures of this role, the transition at the club, and everything like that. And it's all mentally taxing. So how are you? How are you feeling? How are you dealing with everything?
Yeah, I haven't got a real job, have I? I could be in a hospital saving lives, and so there's a context to everything, isn't there? Um, I, I'm feeling all sorts of things. There is some sadness at the people and the relationships that I've built. I'm going to miss some of those people. There's obviously excitement about the next opportunity, which is a move to Everton and a role of technical director is a really exciting opportunity. So there's that there for me as well, and there's also a little bit of like the nostalgia creeps in, that sense of reflecting on everything you've done. I'm enjoying that. Also, I was really clear with myself. I think the announcement of me moving on was made in June, beginning of June, so 4 months ago, and I was determined to make sure that I delivered every day as if I was going to be here for the next 20 years. So I've worked really hard to try and set this season up for success and to try and make good decisions and to try and deliver exactly as I was, in the first 4 months of the job. It was really important to me. I think I owed it to myself. I owe it to the club as well, I think, to do things properly.
I suppose if you're going to go out in any kind of way, then seeing the kids win in front of the Stretford End on a European night, the way that this club writes storylines, you couldn't have contrived that. It was beautiful the way that happened. So, I'm delighted for you, and I'm sad. I've talked to you many times about United and the work that you're doing, and you know that I'm a big fan of yours, as which we'll talk about in a little while. But I guess the next thing to ask really is, you're preparing to leave. You took a period of reflection. We'll talk through some of the accolades, but how are you reflecting on the work that you did? I know you are very much a sort of forward thinker, so you don't like to dwell too much, but you are sometimes a little bit prone to sort of like nostalgic twinge like I am. So how are you reflecting on the work that you've done at United?
I've enjoyed the nostalgia, actually. Spent a lot of time with colleagues and friends and reflected on the last just short of 10 years, really. And I've received a lot of nice messages, and I've done things like this. So, yeah, I've allowed myself to kind of look back a little bit. First and foremost, I think what hits home when you leave or prepare to leave is the privilege and the honour that it's been for me to be able to do the work, because youth development at any club is an important role. But as you know, and everybody watching and listening will know, that the role at United is you're protecting a legacy, and you can see the lineage, and you can see where you fit in that line of youth developers. And I've always kind of delivered the job with the sense of custodianship. I've always talked to the staff about the importance of custodianship, and that our duty and our job is to leave something better than we found it. So yeah, I guess on the way out, you start to think a little bit more about that, the handing over of the baton and the changing of the guards, or however you want to term it. I'm really aware that the experience has been life-changing for me and for my family. I've done things I never could have imagined. I've experienced some incredible things, and I've learned a lot. So it's been incredibly life-changing, and I appreciate that. I sometimes feel as if the club has given me more than I ever could have given to it. And then there's some pride. It's up for other people to decide how good we've been in the last 10 years, not for me to decide that. I guess all I can be sure of is that we left no stone unturned, and we worked as hard as we could. And every day we tried to make good decisions in the best interest of the club and best interest of young people. We made the sort of decisions we think that parents would want us to make for their kids. Did we get everything right? No, nobody ever does. But I have a sense that we couldn't have done any more. Some people will tell me whether we left it better than I found it, but certainly that was the ambition, and that's what we're striving to do every day. And equally, it was never all about me. It's an incredible group of staff, and their work will continue, despite the fact that I'm moving on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, yeah, the conduct of the players is always a thing that we look for, the way that they move on after United as well, or when they're away from United on loan. And just this week, hearing from a few Sheffield Wednesday pals who are saying that Harry Amas has gone there and he's conducted himself really well and doing really well, and that's a club in great turmoil. And to hear a player is applying himself and setting good standards for himself and others around him, someone so young, is a testament to the work that you do and the other guys there as well. Steve Iam and numerous other people, Travis, Tony, who was there before. So many people who work to those kind of standards and deliver them to the kids as well. So we spoke of Carrick Town, like I said, we've spoken a few times in the past, but a year ago was probably the last time we had sat down and properly had a really good chat, and that was for my book, Football Taught by Matt Busby, and we were talking about the club's identity at youth level. And one of the questions I remember asking to you, because I was really interested by your answer, would be whether or not someone could, and this was just before the managerial change at the top level, was whether someone could come in and import a structure of their own at youth level, and whether or not you have to be a custodian. Really interested in that custodianship. And I'm glad that you mentioned it, because whenever I've talked to Martin Edwards, whenever I've talked to any manager, and Sir Alex Ferguson himself has said it a few times, is that he was a custodian. So if Alex Ferguson says it and Martin Edwards says it, it gives you an idea of what you are a custodian of and where you become an innovator. And one of the things that you said, which really, really intrigued me, was because it was a mixed response. And you said that even though you are a custodian, you still have the responsibility to innovate and take United forward. And it was such a good answer. I remember, because it took me right back to Eric Harrison, who I wasn't fortunate enough to interview, but he said in the 90s, or he talked about the changes that United were making to diet, even at that level. All the academy infrastructure was changing in the UK at that time. United brought in optometrists to help with peripheral vision, things that you just wouldn't even think of with kids. I couldn't even begin to list the number of technologies that go on today. I mean, I remember talking to Gordon Hill in the 70s, and he was talking about measuring his height and development, but now it's done in such a meticulous way that it's done to the way that players are taken out of those kind of age groups and put into different ones while their development changes, to media training, to everything that goes on. Like I was saying, you have been a worthy custodian. So many of us, our understanding of the lineage which you're in goes something like Murphy, Harrison, Mullenstein, and now it's Cox. And that's not discounting the number of people that have worked in there, like I mentioned a few earlier, but even the ones going back to Bert Wally, Frank Blunstone, Wilf McGuinness, as well as Paul McGuinness, Tony Whelan. How does it feel to, within that lineage, not only, you've served as a custodian, but you've delivered a youth cup, that two of the players from that youth cup winning team 2 years later went on to score the winning goals in the FA Cup final? That's crazy. That's never happened in history anyway. So for that to happen is such a unique achievement. And obviously, if you win the Youth Cup at United, then that's kind of like rubber stamp on the job done. So how was that achievement for you?
Well, firstly, it's kind of you to mention me in the same breath of some of those people. And as you say, there's a number of people not on that list that deserve a mention. Les Kershaw, Dave Bushell, Eamon Mulvey, people like that. But equally, behind any one of those successful people, there's been a team of unsung heroes and amazing staff that their names don't get remembered, but they were probably just as important. That's the same for me. As there's some incredible staff that their names aren't in the public domain. No one knows who they are, but their work is fundamental to the program that we deliver. Yeah. I've definitely got some incredibly fond memories, some amazing moments. I think across a period of 10 years, I've probably experienced some things that maybe some youth developers only get to see once in a whole career. But yeah, the Youth Cup springs to mind in terms of what a special night it was. A record number of Youth Cup wins, a record crowd, the fact that the game happened to be at Old Trafford, and the timing of it as well. We've always talked to the staff about the fact that it always feels that in the history of United, the academy or the youth system or whatever guise it was in at any point in history, it usually steps up and delivers in a point during adversity. Yeah. Whether that be a world war, whether that be Munich. Now, I'm not suggesting that our circumstances were parallel at all to any of those kind of difficult scenarios. But the first team was in a difficult place, and I think that the youth team that night gave the fans something to really celebrate, and it was a magical atmosphere. For anyone who's in the stadium, they'll know that it felt incredible. And then to see those two boys 2 years later score in in a final against City and win the game, absolutely incredible. But there's a catalogue of those types of moments in terms of individual achievements and seeing your first teams with lots of young players in. Incredible. I guess I go back to the first part of your question there. Custodianship is the job, right? It's about knowing that, well, football clubs, any football club, like they're all over 100, or the majority are over 100 years old, right? We're nearly 150 years at United. So they have a soul. They've got a history. There's a heritage. I think the average age of an existing company in this country at the moment is something like 26 years. So it doesn't matter what football club you're a custodian at, you've got to be really aware of all of the influences upon that club. So I've worked at 3. I'm about to work at my 4th. They've all been incredible football clubs in their own way, but they've all got their own history, their own landscape, their own kind of local culture, the geography that surrounds them, and it shapes the way you have to behave. And I think it's really important that anyone at any football club, you can't just lift and drop what's happened in one place and expect it to be successful somewhere else. So part of the art of leading, I think, in sport and in football is to make sure that you're acutely aware of the landscape that you're walking into. But United's history, there's some moments that have defined some of the behaviours today. So you never give up, you stick together, you invest in youth, there's a sense of community. All of those things, I think, impact the way you have to work at United. But one of the things that's in United's history is innovation. So Jimmy Murphy would have taken a youth team to Europe. That would have been a first United side in the early 50s to the Blue Stars competition, I think 52 or 54, which was the precursor to Sir Matt wanting to take a team to win a European competition for the first time. Yep. But you go all throughout the history, and we were the first to pull out of playing in the FA Cup and playing the World Club Cup. We would have been the first to embrace kind of sports science. We would have been probably the first to have an academy. We're in our 93rd year. I don't know if we've ever worked out who started first, but we may well be the first youth program to cross the 100-year mark as well. So innovation is inherently part of Manchester United, being the first to do stuff, doing things differently, and finding a way to future-proof yourself. So the job in hand is very much about respecting what's come before, protecting the things that are really important, being brave enough to not hang on to things that aren't important anymore, and to find a way of innovating. And particularly when you're working with young players, you're always looking into the future. So you're working with a 9-year-old. That young player may well still be playing in 2050. So you've got to try and start to think about what the game might look like in 2050 and prepare players for the future game rather than how things are done today.
Yeah, great answer that. When you look at the transition at the top level of the club with all the managers, one of the questions that's commonly asked has been about the record of, the lineage of the young players in the squad, in the matchday squad, and that's another way that success is measured, not just in the youth cup. You look at the 70s, carried on all the way through the 70s, and we were a decade without a youth cup then as well. And you had the likes of Brian Greenough and Sammy McElroy and Arthur Albiston, who were some of the most beloved United legends of all time. And since you were appointed head of academy in 2019, I was having a look here. So this goes back further. Obviously, you were at the club since 2016. But just in this role since 2019, 25 academy graduates have made their debut in the first team, which is an incredible number. People think that might not sound as 25 in 6 years, but it is an incredible number when you think Sir Matt Busby was 75 in 25 years, Alex Ferguson, by all accounts, and mixed reports on how many it was exactly. The club's official records, it's in the mid-90s. Your number then is comparable and even better than some of the most productive spells in our history. It's also the best in the league. It's higher numbers than both City and Chelsea. I haven't double-checked this, but I'm pretty sure combined. City and Chelsea don't have those numbers since 2019. That's for me. I mean, we talk about the pressure that's on the first team to keep the manager to keep including a player, but your pressure is to keep delivering a group of players who are worthy of contention. I mean, and it's incredible to keep that amount of turnaround going. So is that another, I mean, I know I'm putting words into your mouth, it's a fairly obvious answer, but that must be a really great source of pride for you.
Yeah, of course it is. I think there's 35 debuts across the 10 years. I think in my time leading the department, 25% of all minutes would have come from academy players. There's obviously a number of players that are thriving away from our club as well. And you think about this is never the driving force, but the revenue that you make when players move on and you can reinvest that into the program. That's another measure as well. So yeah, really proud. But I think it's important to point out that they're everybody's numbers. They're not my numbers. You still got to have a manager that picks the player. The player himself is the big driving force behind a debut is the player and their support network, whether that be their family or their friends or the school teachers. There's an element of the board have to invest and believe in a youth system in order for you to have the resource to be able to develop the players in the right way, because the Premier League's getting harder. The jump from youth football to the Premier League is as big as it's ever been. The upside of the Premier League is we have the greatest league in the world. It brings resource that football clubs can deliver amazing youth programs. I'm really proud of youth development across the country, not just where United are at, but I think there's a lot of European clubs will be looking at their resource and the infrastructure and our approach to youth development, and we are the envy of lots of European clubs, but that only becomes possible because of the money that filters down from the Premier League and the popularity of the Premier League. But it's a double-edged sword. You're actually then trying to debut players in that league. Very, very difficult, particularly if you're a club with expectation and a club that's trying to win things. It's a hard thing to do. So I'm pleased and proud that we've managed to keep the traditions alive. Youth development ebbs and flows. It's the beauty of our club is it's done it for 93 years. You don't always have periods of that look like that. I'm sure there's been times through the 70s where maybe it didn't look quite so prosperous for the club. It ebbs and flows. That's just life. But yeah, we've had a really good period. A debut is only half the story. You're trying to help boys build careers. So yeah, a debut is an incredible landmark for young people, for the player and the family themselves. But the real challenge is how do they go in the team and stay in the team, and how do they go on to have a career. So yeah, it's a little bit more complex than just looking at the debuts. The debuts are a nice measure, but I'm proud of the work that the staff have done to support the players, and I'm unbelievably proud of the players that have gone on to achieve what they achieved. And if I played a part, then fantastic. But that's for those lads to tell me rather than for me to claim that accolade. And I think as well that some of those early debuts in my time would have been me inheriting the great work that had come before me from amazing youth developers. And there's also an incredible amount of people involved in helping a player play in the Premier League right from the first day they were recruited. So, those people probably take the lion's share of the praise for the work that's been done. But the beauty of youth development is I'm leaving, but the legacy will ripple on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who the next one is. 255 will be the next debut, and I'll have a keen eye on it. And I'm looking forward to seeing how some of the work we've done translates into first team performance in the coming months and years.
Some really exciting players in there. Shea Lacey is my shout. He's been training with the first team lately, so So I guess one question a lot of people watching and listening to this will want to know an answer to is Ruben Amorim came in. His system has attracted so much attention. So how was that filtered down to the academy? In as much as you can tell me, really, has there been any suggestion that the club should move to a three-man defence at that level? How does the relationship in that pathway compare with previous first-team managers in your time there?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and I think it gets overly simplified. People just think that the game revolves around a system, and therefore you've got to match systems up. But we're trying to do different things. Ruben's trying to win games in a pressurized environment. And I'm trying to develop players, adaptable players that not only can debut in the next few weeks, but also can sustain a career for the next 15, 20 years. Or as I said earlier, if you're working with a really young player, they might still be playing in 2050. So the job of an academy is to give the players a well-rounded and broad education of the game, and to be put in environments where they become adaptable and they have the ability to make decisions and recognize patterns on the pitch.
I would never have wanted to leave United. I'm sure it's different for different people, but if you want to choose a time to leave United, you want to leave it in the best possible condition in the role that you're in. I mean, you're leaving the academy and production line in the richest of health it's been in a long time. The under-18s are in incredible form, in great shape, in considering the next generation of players coming through as well. You've got 14 and 15-year-olds in that setup, which tells you, A, the talent of the players, but B, the environment in which they're being nurtured. The under-21s are doing really well. A lot of players are already with first-team experience in there. So well positioned to continue into the next generation. I guess this is the best kind of, if you were going to leave, this is the best kind of condition you'd want to leave it in.
Yeah, they're in a good place. I think there's lots of good players. I think I've managed to avoid naming names for 10 years, so I'm not going to break that tradition now. I think by picking an individual or naming a name that you think might be the next one, you cause them more problems rather than help them. But there's definitely boys in there that are capable of, breaking through. The groups are doing really well. Look at the 18s and the 21s. I don't think the 18s have conceded a goal yet. They're sitting top of the table. They've beaten some decent opponents, I think, and that's great. Victories and winning is important. You want the boys to know how to win and play to win, but winning the league isn't the job. So it's important that we don't get carried away with league position. It's about, are the individuals going to be capable and are they going to be ready? But I'm really pleased that we've left it in a healthy place, or I've left it in a healthy place. We've had a challenging year. So trying to leave it healthy against the backdrop of some of the challenge that we've faced. It's been well documented. It's been difficult, but I think we've managed to do that. But it's a never-ending piece of work, youth development. You never complete it. You never finish it. So as I step away, I know some of the things that needed to be done next, and some of the things that need to be improved, and how to get better. I think anyone in sport has a competitive streak in them. You're always thinking about how to improve, how to be better. So I'm not suggesting that it's sitting there and it's the finished article, because it's an ongoing piece of work. So it'll be the next group of leaders and group of staff that will take it on and improve, hopefully from a foundation. But I really hope that what they do is they better me. It's my work's wasted unless it was a foundation for someone else to go and deliver something even better. So I hope that that's the case, and I wish everyone the best of luck with that. And I really look forward to seeing where it heads next.
If you could leave one message for that next generation of staff, not necessarily Stephen Tope, who started this week, and best of luck to Stephen, but for in the future, what would your message be to that next generation?
So Mark Dempsey has become a close friend of Mark. Obviously played for the club in the 80s, worked with some wonderful players in the academy for over a decade, kind of in the early 2000s, and then returned with Ollie to work with the first team. But we were blessed that actually we managed to steal him, and we've had his services in the academy. And I've always used him as there's loads of wisdom in the staff that are there, but Mark has always been really supportive and has offered me great friendship and great counsel. But at a turning point really in my time, where I was trying to work out where we went and how do we make this better and how do we improve, and Mark just said to me, be brave. You can't be a success at this football club as a player, as a member of staff, unless you're brave. You've got to do it your own way. You've got to have conviction in who you are and how you want to do things, and you've got to leave your own mark. So I guess that would be my message, would be brave, do it your own way. That's to all the staff. I wish Stephen the best of luck. I've spoken to him. He's a good guy. He'll have some great ideas. And I genuinely hope that I have given him some sort of flat platform with which he can go and be better than me. And I hope that is the case, because that is just how this has worked year on year for nearly 100 years, is people doing their best, handing on the baton, and hoping that the next custodians can improve and do better than the previous generation. So yeah, be brave would be my advice.
Well, he's had a great introduction, to be fair. Not many people have that kind of passover, and you certainly didn't benefit from it. Few have in history. That's not the way that football works, but that's been a really sort of healthy transition period. So hopefully that's a good sign for the future. Last question, Nick. What are you going to take with you forward in your life from your association with United?
Oh, wow, so much. So I always had this kind of mantra with the staff that we're there to try and help players play in our first team, but we have always known that the majority won't. Therefore, success could never be defined by debuts alone. Real success is helping individuals to reach their full potential, but also in the pursuit of excellence and the pursuit of trying to be the best. The process has got to be one that's life enriching, life changing, and memorable. And I think in my desire to try and create an environment like that for the players, I've been the biggest benefactor, because actually it's my life that has been enriched. It's me that's got the memories, and it's me that's learned skills and built friendships. So yeah, it would be a lot of friendships. I think, across the 10 years, I got married and I lost my dad, and United were my family during those two significant moments. So there's friendships and relationships, but they will last long after I've gone, I hope. I've traveled the world, so I've been to countries I never could have imagined. And I've got some great memories. And I've had experiences that I never could have believed would happen to me. I suggest one that springs to mind would be standing in the Guard of Honour, either side of the Holy Trinity statue, as Sir Bobby's cortege came down St Matt Busby Way. And I remember thinking to myself, this doesn't feel real. I met Bobby Charlton when I was 14, and he was a hero. I wasn't a United fan, but yeah, I met him when I was 14, and to have the honour and the privilege to wear the blazer and to stand in that cortege. And I did the same for Dennis Law as well. So moments like that are moments that you never can imagine are going to happen to you. So I will take a lot of those with me as well. In terms of kind of professionally, so I learned this the other day. Well, no, not the other day, maybe a year or so ago. We had a psychologist come in to talk to parents about how to offer good support to their children whilst they're in our program, and she described how the word compete, or to compete, is actually Latin for to strive together. And it left me feeling that, yeah, that sums up Manchester United. So fiercely competitive, but an understanding that competing is actually about striving together. And I've always felt the biggest influences on me, the great youth developers, some that you've just talked about, whether it's Tony Whelan or Dave Bush or Manchester United people, have this, whilst they're fiercely competitive, have this real respect for the game. They have a respect for the opposition. They have a respect for their duty to the club. And I think that probably is the biggest mark on me. I just think there's a class around the way people at Manchester United behave. And I like to think I'd always try to respect the game, and I would always try to act with class. But I think once you spend a lot of time with people that are ingrained in Manchester United, you realise that there's another level and another layer to go in terms of a respect for the game and a respect for trying to win, but knowing that actually, it's a respect for your opposition. And certainly when it comes to youth development, it's knowing that a debut probably is the byproduct of having a respect for the fact that you're working with a young person, and that your job is to develop and nurture the person, and never forget that they are a person, and always put the person before the player themselves. It was a long answer, wasn't it? The answer is probably unanswerable, because I genuinely have had a privileged and magical decade, and I've learned more than I could probably ever recount, and I probably haven't had enough time to think about it, but they would be some of the things that spring to mind. But I think you mentioned Everton. It's probably appropriate that I finish with that. But you talk about what have I learned, or what has United given me, or what will it take with me? Well, I spent my time trying to create a platform for young people to leave the academy. You want them to leave to the first team, and if they're not quite capable of the first team, you want them to go on to have success away from the club. Like United has probably given me the opportunity, the support, the encouragement, the chance to craft my knowledge and skills, and it's ultimately given me the opportunity to take on an amazing role at Everton.
Yeah, like I said earlier, incredibly well deserved, and a really exciting opportunity, even though we are going to be very sad to lose you at United. So yeah, first of all, thank you for your time, Nick. I'd just like to thank you as well. Like, first of all, on my own part, you've always been very generous to me, generous with your time, generous with your words, really, and I really do personally appreciate that. You've sent me a lot of supportive messages over the years. You've been quite influential in getting my work and books seen by different people in different areas of the club. People might have seen me posting about the books being presented to academy players. I know that you played a role in that. We haven't talked about it directly, but I'm certain that you did. I'm not a spokesman for the fans by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to say thank you for your efforts within the club. Thank you for keeping those standards going, for representing them fully whenever we talked, numerous times over the years when we did, for helping to nurture that next generation in the way that they're supposed to be as Manchester United players. I mentioned those names earlier. The greatest compliment I can pay you is that you're a worthy name to sit alongside them. So thank you for your contribution to Manchester United, and all the best for the future.
Thank you. Listen, those words are wonderful. They mean a lot, but they mean a lot coming from someone who understands the club history as well as you do, and is as proud of the history. It means a lot, and I need to thank you as well for the support that you've shown me and given me in helping me understand the club and allowing me ultimately to be able to express myself in the job. It was down to people like you, so thank you very much.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, if you can give us a like, give us a subscription. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, if you can give us a review on the platform you're listening on as well. I'm sure if you've listened and you've enjoyed this and you're a fan of what Nick's done, if you're not, I don't know what club you're following, please nudge him on social media. I'll put the links in the descriptions if you're not following him already. Make sure you thank him for his contribution to the club, because it is immeasurable and he does deserve to be mentioned with those names, and it will be by me for sure in future publications. I will make certain of that. All the best for the future, Nick, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.